All right, from the filling to ooey gooey grilled sandwiches to a tangy salty topping for salads, cheese, we love it, don't we? Can we get a little whoop whoop for cheese? Chef, a little whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop.
Oh, very impressive. All right, you guys, this is a cheese master. She actually is a professional cheese maker. I had no idea that existed as a profession, and I'm really, really thinking that my life decisions were not spot on. I would have loved to have been a professional cheesemaker. There is still time. Teach me your ways, please. Do you guys want her to teach you her ways? Yeah? I think she'll do it if we get a little louder, a little more clapping going on like this guy. All right, without further ado, chef, take it away before I mic you up.
Yeah, all right. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I love it. I love the enthusiasm. Keep it going. You can stay and watch if you want. We're gonna have samples, everything. Yeah, just do what you need to do. Oh, that's cold.
That is cool.
Yeah.
This, if you would like, just
Okay.
so I don't.
Yeah, wherever you want.
This is the fast and dirty way to get
Fast
this
and
done.
dirty. I like it. That's a lot like cheese. Yeah.
I'll leave
Maybe
it
not
at that.
the dirty part.
Anyways, you guys have fun and enjoy the chef, enjoy her cheese. Have fun.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Yeah, all good? Good to go? Okay, awesome. So we are doing cheese making the fast way today. Normally, cheesemakers like time. Cheese likes to take its time. So I like to call this urban cheese making. This is kind of the urban cheese making vibe. So what I've had to do, because I only have half an hour, so I've done a few things to start. I've kind of kick-started already, and I'm going to tell you what I've done, and then I'm going to take you through the exciting part about cheese making. So as I was introduced, I'm Alexis Cobham from Make Cheese, and it's a company that I founded with my friend Ella Kinlock, and we teach people how to make cheese. We sell cheese making kits. I've got a demonstration kit up here. It's our mozzarella. We tell people that it takes roughly an hour to make cheese, and I'm just going to tell you all of the steps involved. So I've started with milk, which is the key ingredient in cheese making, if you didn't know. With mozzarella, because it's our urban fast way of making cheese, I've chosen a really high quality milk. Now, all milk in the store is pasteurized. There is no possibility of purchasing unpasteurized milk in the store. It's not sold in Canada, it's not legal. So I've got the next best thing. I've got, it's a whole milk, which means that it has been non-homogenized. It has not been through the homogenization process, so it has not been processed as much. And I have, it's been grass-fed and it's organic. So it's really the best quality milk that I am able to find. You can find it at Whole Foods, any kind of a local artisanal store, you'll be able to find it. So as long as it says non-homogenized, it's good to go. You can use any milk really you want for any of our cheese kits that we sell, but I do recommend the highest quality. It's going to get the most, it's going to get a really good quality product. So the higher quality milk, the better quality products you're going to get. So that's sort of the essentials. So the main ingredients that we're going to be working with today in cheese making are our Rennet tablets, our Rennet, and our citric acid. So in cheese making, in slow cheese making, we would normally use a bacterial culture, and that kind of culture will ripen the milk, it gets the milk ready for cheese making, and then we have our Rennet tablets. So Rennet originally was the enzyme that we would take from the lining of a cow's stomach, put it in the milk, and it turned it into curds and whey. So everyone here gets to be Miss Muffet. We're all going to make curds and whey, which is super fun. So, so what I've done essentially is taken 4 liters of milk, and I've put it into our cheese pot, and then essentially the steps that I've done are take a cup of water, and then I've added a teaspoon and a half of citric acid to the water. I've stirred it around, and I've put it into the milk, and then I've stirred the milk. There's a special cheese making stir that is always good to learn. When you're making cheese and you stir it, you have to be very gentle, but you also don't want to just stir around and around like that, because all of the ingredients, once added to the milk is just going to sink to the bottom. So what you want to do is stir in an up and down motion when you're stirring your cheese so that it's evenly distributed. So when you put your, I'll show you now what's in here. So when you put your spoon in, you basically submerge it underneath the milk and stir in an up and down motion for about 30 seconds. After I have put in the citric acid component, which is essentially what prepares the cheese for cheese making. It also allows us to stretch the cheese, which is going to be a whole lot of fun. We're going to see some cheese mozzarella stretching. The next ingredient is the rennet. So the rennet tablet, one batch of cheese only requires a quarter tablet of rennet. So you don't need a lot, it's very potent. This is, like I said, the vegetable rennet. It's derived from fungus and various plants. They've been able to extract the enzyme from those plants to make it. It lasts a lot longer than the animal rennet. The animal rennet is the traditional way, but it doesn't last as long, and it also flavors your cheese a little bit differently, whereas this, you really just get the flavoring of the milk out of it. So I've taken a quarter cup of sorry, I forgot to mention non-chlorinated water. That's why there's a bottle of water up here. You can use tap water as long as it's not chlorinated. So as long as it's been sitting long enough for the chlorination to dissipate, you're okay. So for the fast way, we're using bottled water. So I've taken a quarter tablet of rennet and I've put it into a quarter cup of non-chlorinated water. And what you're going to want to do is let it sit for about 10 or 15 minutes to make sure that the rennet tablet has completely dissolved. And then once you've allowed it to dissolve, you stir it around and then you add it to your milk. So you're essentially going to infuse it into the milk, and then and you're going to want to do that at a temperature of 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So you warm up your milk, get it to a nice temperature, and then you take it off the heat and you maintain that temperature. You're going to want to put a towel around it or put it on a cutting board, or make sure you're in a space where the temperature isn't going to fluctuate, or you're in a really, really cold place or a really hot place. So I've added, at this stage, what I've done is I've added the citric acid, and I have added the rennet. And now, when you add the rennet, you put the lid back on and you let it sit for at least 15 to 20 minutes. And what's going to happen is all of your milk is going to coagulate. All the cheese fat is going to coagulate into one solid mass, and then it's going to separate from all of the liquid whey. And that is what has happened here. So, so what I've done is, everyone can see properly? Awesome. So what you're seeing here is the coagulation part, and then you're seeing all of the liquid whey in here. And now what I've done is made a very, very basic cheese curd. So mozzarella is derived from cheese curd, and what you want to do is then take it, strengthen your curd, because this is just a very weak curd. The reason there's lines in it is because I've taken my knife and I've cut it. At first it's just going to be a solid mass. I take my knife and I cut it, and if I've cut it and it's still like the texture of the milk feels a little bit weak, or it doesn't feel like it's going to be quite a solid mass, then you just let it sit longer. All it needs is another 5 or 10 minutes, and then it's going to let sit. But mine was ready to go after 10 or 15 minutes, and I was able to test that it was a strong enough curd in order for us to shape it. So we want to cut the cheese. So essentially we take our knife and we submerge it fully into the cheese, and we cut it like this. So you want to cut it into sort of a grid shape. You can do it large squares, small squares, it's really up to you. The reason we're cutting is because the curd still has tons and tons of liquid in it. And what we want to do is get that liquid to come out of the curd so it becomes a solid, even more solid, and then there's not a lot of liquid running out of the cheese curd. So I've essentially done the cutting, and now what we're going to do is warm up the cheese again to a temperature of 110 degrees, not too hot, but we want to warm it up just enough so that the cheese curd is going to, again, there's more of the liquid whey is going to come out of the cheese curd, and it's going to become a much more solid mass. So I'm going to turn on the stove. And I'm just going to have it at a really low temperature. So if you're working with an electric stove, I would just have it on low or medium low, or if it's a gas, then you just want to keep it on a fairly low temperature to make sure that we're not overheating it. Okay, so I'm going to place it back on the pot, and I've got my thermometer, and we're going to let the temperature increase to 110 degrees. So essentially yes, I'm a cheese maker. I love making cheese, but really the core value of Make Cheese is to empower other people to make cheese and to empower you to learn a little bit about where milk comes from. So what we've done is made a variety of cheese kits, and we've given you all of the ingredients, all of the equipment, and all of the instructions that you need to make this cheese. And we want you to go ahead. We want you to forge ahead and make it yourself. So the demonstration will help, and then after that you guys can venture into the world of cheese making on your own. We've got cheddar kits, feta kits, a variety kit with all sorts of soft cheeses, and even if you get to the expert level, you can even make brie. We do have a brie making kit, and you can grow your own mold. It's tons of fun. My partner and I have a shirt called "Let's Grow Mold Together," so we're trying to have fun with it. So as the curd and the liquid is warming up, it's okay to start stirring the cheese curds. They are going to break apart, but that's okay. We're just trying to get a nice, strong, solid, massive cheese curd. So I'm going to start stirring, and essentially I'm going to watch these curds. You can tell that they're really quite strong because you're able to hold them right in the spoon like this. If your curd is falling through the spoon or it's not looking like it's strong enough, then the heat will help bring it all together because the liquid is coming out of it. So I'm just going to start stirring, break it up, try to get a lot more of this curd this way out of the cheese. So the liquid whey is a great product. It's not just a throwaway. You can do tons of great things with it. It's filled with protein. That's where all of the protein whey comes from. It comes from the milk, the leftover milk. So you can use it to make another cheese with it. You can, if you have like a wood oven like they used to have in the olden days, you could just let it sit on your wood oven, and then eventually after 8 hours it would reduce into a very thin type of cheese called Yetos, and it was like a sort of a caramelized type cheese. So you can do that if you want. If you're not so keen on letting your cheese sit for 8 hours on your electric stove, then there's other ways that you can use the whey. There's a lot of puns in cheese making, so you can use the whey to, there's tons of protein in it, so I actually use it for putting it in my smoothies if I ever want to do any kind of smoothie making, and I can also put it in any baking. So any muffins, or if you make bread, sourdough, anything like that, all you have to do is replace the liquid water with the whey instead, and then you get a really nice tasting product, and you're actually adding the protein back into the product. Also, any acid-loving plant like a tomato really likes liquid, really loves the whey. So if you have any tomato plants at home, feel free to add any of the whey to them. They'll thrive. They love it. So you see that I'm just sort of stirring as I go. I'm going to take the temperature once more just to see where we're at. It's really okay if your curds start to break apart quite a lot. You really want to get them, you don't want them to be too small, but you're just really, again, trying to break it up so that enough of the liquid is going to come out of them so that they become more solid on their own. Even if your temperature isn't exactly to 110 degrees, that's okay. You can just kind of gauge it. So yeah, right now, it's looking good. I can tell that I have some nice solid cheese curd in my pot, and I'm just going to keep breaking it up. So it looks really great. You can also take the leftover whey, and if there's quite a lot of milk fat in there still, you can add a little bit of extra milk and boil it, and then you're going to put it in a cheesecloth, and then you can get ricotta out of it as well. So you won't get a lot, but you'll get a little bit of leftover ricotta if that's what you like. Can anyone here tell me what the original milk was in mozzarella making? Anyone? I know you guys know. I know you know. What kind of? That's right, yeah, water buffalo. Yeah, that's right. So water buffalo was the original milk that mozzarella was made with. So we often use, their stores either use a combination of water buffalo and milk and regular cow's milk or just cow's milk. So any kind of milk you use, so you can also use goat's milk if you want. Cheese is fairly versatile. You're going to get a higher yield and obviously you're going to get a different flavor, but you can use it. But the traditional milk was buffalo, and then we use cow's milk. Okay, so I'm liking the way this cheese looks. It looks really nice and pliable. It looks like the liquid is coming out of it and it's looking like it's strong enough to hold its own. So now what we're going to do is take our colander and just a simple bowl to catch the cheese, and we're going to start scooping out all of the cheese curds into the colander. So essentially, we're just taking everything out of the pot, and all of the liquid whey is going to drain into the colander. And then we're going to add that liquid back into the pot, because at this point, we're going to reheat the curd, the cheese curd, in the liquid whey. There are two ways of heating up the cheese. We can use the microwave method or the water bath method. So the microwave method there's nothing bad about it other than, if you, obviously not too many people are keen on using the microwave, but it does heat the cheese very thoroughly all the way from the center and to the outside. The water bath method is going to heat your cheese from the outside, so it's not going to be as evenly distributed, but that's okay. I'm going to show you how to work with that. If you're really a big salt lover, then what you can do is take some salt and add it to the whey while you are warming up your cheese curd again before you start shaping it. And that will help infuse some of the salt into the cheese. And then I'll also show you how to add the salt while you're shaping it. You get tons out of this. So a full gallon of milk is going to yield about a pound of cheese. We're going to get a lot of cheese from this, which is awesome. So just make sure I've got all the bits and pieces out of the pot. A couple more. You can also use if you want, you can also use like a strainer and then pour it to get every single bit if you want out, but I don't mind. This, as long as you know that your curd is good and strong, as long as it doesn't fall through the holes of the spoon. So now all of this curd is gonna start losing its liquid, so it's okay you want to be fairly gentle with it, but you can start moving it around just so that you're getting all the liquid out. It's really a big part of it is just trying to get the liquid out of the cheese, and it is going to take a little bit of time for that to happen. It's just more difficult trying to stretch mozzarella if it's full of liquid. So there's also another method. If you didn't want to do the microwave method or the water bath method, you could also take this entire thing of cheese and once you've extracted all of the liquid out of it, you could take the entire thing and then put it into a warm bath, essentially. You could put it into a larger pot with warm water. You probably want the temperature to be between, like, warm enough to really heat it, but not to melt it. You're really not trying to melt it. Maybe between 70 or about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you can just essentially dip your hands in the water and start stretching it and shaping it inside the water, underneath the water if you want, as opposed to doing it bit by bit. So what we're going to do is, what I'm going to demo is making those bocconcini balls. So we're just going to make some balls, so that's why we're going to take bits and pieces of this and shape them. There's so much. It makes so much. You can use any kind of milk. If you want to do a lower fat milk, you can. Just keep in mind that that's going to reduce the amount of cheese you get. So a 2% or a 1% or a skim. That's not really what I recommend. I really like the high fat stuff, but if you have dietary restrictions, just keep in mind that it's going to yield about half a pound or a little less, depending on the cheese. So you can see that all this liquid is still coming out. It's going to be like a nice fun process of just getting it all out. And then as it's coming out, you're going to then want to heat up the liquid whey, because the liquid has to be nice and hot in order to, when you submerge the liquid back, the cheese back into the liquid. So you want to increase the temperature. So I'm going to turn it up to, I'm just going to crank it. I'm going to turn it up really high at first. You probably don't want it to go above 185 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, you don't want it to be boiling, because it's just going to heat the outside of the curd more quickly and the inside won't be as warm. You can, at this point, if you want to, you can freeze the whey. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't do anything to the quality of the whey or the product. And you can also freeze the curd if you want. And then once you're ready to go back into the cheese making process to turn it into mozzarella, you can then warm it up. But just keep in mind that curd is better shaped and stretched when it is warm. So if you're going to freeze it or put it in the fridge and come back to it later, you're going to want to let it warm up to a room temperature or something a little bit higher, because it really is important to have the cheese curd at a nice temperature. Not too cold, otherwise it won't stretch. Okay, we're getting close. Okay, so now I'm going to dump some of this back in here. I'm going to add some salt. You can add as much as you like. I generally add, I don't know, about 2 tablespoons. But I like salt, so it's up to you. You can use any specialty salt you want. This is just a regular table salt, so I'm just adding right in there, no problem at all. This is going to be a much more subtle way of adding salt to your cheese. So if you want it to be really, really strong, I would recommend adding it as you're shaping it or just sprinkling it on after. Some people ask if you can add herbs or any other types of spices to the cheese, which absolutely you can with the feta kit or with the cheddar kit. With mozzarella, I wouldn't recommend doing that while you're shaping it. I mean, if you want and you know you're going to be eating it that night or serving it in the next day or two, then you can do that. You can add like fresh herbs, but for the most part, I would just make it first and then infuse it in like an oil or garlic or any kind of a liquid that you want to preserve it in. And I wouldn't necessarily add it or blend it into the actual shaping, especially if you want to get like a nice smooth texture, because it's going to change the texture. So mozzarella is not. You could use a different type of salt if you wanted, but again, you just have to keep in mind that the texture is going to change. I'd say like a cheddar or a feta or like a chev. Those are better ways of infusing different herbs. Okay, I'm going to pop my gloves on, and we are going to start making our first mozzarella ball. Okay, so you can make them any size you want. Bear in mind, the smaller the piece, the quicker it will warm up, and the larger the piece, the longer it's going to take and the longer it needs to warm up. So if you want, you can take it, put it on a cutting board and cut your massive block of cheese curd, and then you have all sort of even shapes, or you can just grab it with your hand and just take whatever shape you like. So as you can see, it's like one nice solid mass. It really is quite a nice strong curd, and this is exactly what you want. If you find that for some reason it hasn't really molded together, then it's rare that happens, especially if you're using a good quality milk. But for some reason, if it hasn't quite worked out, there's always a way to salvage cheese. You can always put it back in the water, heat it up and boil it, and actually what you're getting is ricotta. So that ricotta is just a simple cheese, and it actually means cooked twice. So that's what you're doing, is cooking it twice, really. So I've taken a chunk about this size. It's a good size to start with. And then I'm going to take it and submerge it in the liquid. Sometimes it likes to bob up to the top, so I'm just going to take a knife and just hold it down. And essentially, the water is, I can tell already that the liquid whey is not quite hot enough. Like ideally you would wait till the temperature is a little bit hotter, but because we're we're urban cheesemakers and we're on a bit of a time constraint, I'm just gonna do it now. So it means that I'm gonna submerge the cheese a lot longer than I would normally. When it's at about 185 degrees Fahrenheit, you probably want to submerge it for about 30 to 60 seconds. That's sort of a rough guideline, but this will be a little bit longer. So as I know that it's heating the outside, I can also take it and then I can move it around just to make sure that all of the edges and all the inside is getting evenly distributed. And I'm going to do this one without adding salt just to start. I'm happy to take questions if there's any questions while we're doing this. If anyone has any, just put your hand up and I will answer away. So the method of, how am I doing for time?
Oh, you're golden. I just wanted to come out and if people want the power of the microphone, once again, here I am. So just raise your hand.
So as I'm heating the cheese, I can start to see that it's starting to melt, which is a really good thing because that's how you know that it's getting ready. If it's not looking like it's melted or it's easily pliable, then I would let it warm up a little bit longer. Bear in mind this is going to be fairly warm on the hands, so it's okay if you want to have like a little cup of cold water or cold water with ice next to you. Gloves always helps as well, but it is a little bit warm to the touch. You can also wear thicker gloves, or you can also do it in a bowl if you want with a spoon if you're very, very sensitive. But really what you need is the full hands-on stretching portion of it. So even just if you're touching it and you can tell that it is really quite warm, as you can see it's starting to drip through, then you know that your cheese is ready for shaping. So what I'm going to do is take my warm mozzarella ball, or my warm curd, and I'm going to take my thumbs and press it into the cheese and fold it. So press and fold, press and fold. I only need to do this a couple times, and then I'm going to start to see that it's binding together. And so now what I'm going to do is start shaping it into a ball. I like to tuck it under, and you can start to see that beautiful shine. So essentially that's what you're going for. It doesn't require a lot of handling. All you need to do is just take there's different methods that you can use. You can sort of experiment in whatever way it looks best, but essentially this is all you need to do. It's very, very simple. You're warming it up, and then essentially you're taking it and then you're shaping it into a fresh mozzarella ball, and that's it. That's all you have to do. It's very, very simple.
First question.
Yeah, sounds good.
The lucky lady on my left.
How long does the cheese and the whey keep for in the fridge once you've made it?
Good question. So if the whey is unsalted, it probably doesn't last for more than 7 days. I would check it after 7 days. If you have salt in it, if you're adding it to the process, it's going to last about 10 days or more. I would just put it in a sealed container. The cheese itself, again, unsalted, about 5 to 7 days because it's a fresh cheese, and if it's salted, probably at least a week. It's also okay if you want, I don't have a tub here, but if you wanted to keep this shape here, this mozzarella ball, then you can submerge it in cold water, and it's going to maintain that shape, keep it as a nice ball, and then anything you add to it like salt or oil is going to preserve that cheese just a little bit longer. But bear in mind that mozzarella is a young cheese. It's not like you're trying to age it or anything. It's meant to be, it's best eaten right away. So yeah, but it will last up to 5 to 7 days. You can freeze it after, but remember that it's going to change the texture a little bit after you reheat it. But it's totally okay to freeze. Yeah, it does make a lot. So yeah, yeah, there is a lot. So if you want, you can do a half portion. So 2 liters of milk is okay. The recipe, it's just a little bit difficult to divide the ingredients that much more. So you could try to divide it in half, but I would say that probably best to keep it. If you wanted, you could also do half ricotta and half mozzarella. So you could take out the half that you've done and then put the other half back in and make a ricotta. The ricotta does last about the same amount of time. If you strain the ricotta in the cheesecloth after, and there's less liquid, then it will last longer. So the firmer the cheese, the less liquid that's in there, the longer it will last.
Awesome, thanks, Chef. We have another question for the pro cheesemaker in the house. Take it away.
I was a little bit late, so I didn't understand how much ratio of the citric acid with 1 gallon of milk.
Yeah, I did 1 cup of water, 1 cup of non-chlorinated water to 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid. that's for your typical 1 pound of cheese. So this is nice and warm because the cheese curd here is nice and warm. So I don't feel like I need to have it submerged for too long. And what we're going to do this one, I mean, you can shape it and stretch it. Some people like to do long twists, but we're trying to get a nice long stretch out of this one.
So, Chef, what are your favorite uses for fresh mozzarella?
Great question. It's my preference to make a caprese salad or a tomato, basil, and bocconcini salad because I really love fresh oil and fresh basil and so we've got the liquid starting to boil, which is great. So we're just going to turn down the temperature. And once it's come to a boil, then we can just reduce the heat, and then it should be okay sitting as it is, just on its own. So yeah, I love putting it on pizza. It works. You guys just saw a pizza demo. Perfect for that. It melts beautifully in the oven. Yeah, you can really do anything you want, but sometimes I just literally will, as I'm making it, I'll just eat it. You can eat it right away. That's the great thing about it. It doesn't take long, and yeah, and it tastes delicious fresh.
All right, do we have any other questions in the audience? Cheese lovers, burning questions? Fantastic.
What about the feta kits and the cheddar kits? Are they as easy?
They are and honestly, they're actually they're easier than the mozzarella. The one challenge of the mozzarella is learning how to shape it. But I mean, as you can see, it's not that hard, but it's just about practice for the most part. For the other kits, the feta and cheddar, you're just putting them into a cheese mold. So you're not really doing any shaping. You're really essentially making your cheese curd in the pot, and once you're done, instead of putting it in a colander, you're putting it in the cheese mold, which we provide in the kit, with the cheesecloth, which we also provide, and then essentially you're just letting it sit on the counter until all of the whey has drained out. So it's actually a lot easier. For the cheddar, there's a few more steps if you want to age it, and we include all of those instructions in the kit for you. But for the most part, it takes a little bit longer because it's a slower method of making cheese. Yeah, so. You can age it as long as you like. Cheddar, we give you a wax coating. So I'm just going to shape this as I talk. We give you a wax coating, and you can essentially wax the cheese and let it sit there in the fridge. It ages in the fridge, and you can do that for up to a year if you like. You can do it for 3 months. It really just depends on what you want. So now you can see that it's a nice strong curd. It's really like strong enough to become pliable, so you can stretch it as long as you like, stretch it and shape it. This is essentially this is how you know you've got a nice beautiful curd, because it stretches as far as it can go. Sometimes if I'm with someone, they take one end and I take the other, and we see how far we can go. Yeah, you could exactly. You can jump rope. Yeah.
And it looks like a Guinness record in the making.
Yeah, exactly. The longest cheese curd stretched. Exactly.
That probably exists.
I'm sure it does.
I flipped through those books. They have everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so essentially you just have to keep in mind that once it's cooled down, it's not going to stretch anymore. So the stretching is really fun, it's really great, but I wouldn't want to start stretching this, because after a while, once it's cooled down, it's just going to take its shape. So essentially you just want to let it sit like that. You can do all sorts of designs, all sorts of shapes. You can braid it. We'll do a bigger one to speed it up.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Why do you use the citric acid?
The citric acid is for the fast method of cheese making. So if you wanted to, it's essentially because bocconcini is not a cheese that needs to be aged. You don't need to use the bacterial culture like the other one. If you wanted to make the type of mozzarella that is traditional on pizza, where you grate it, then we would recommend using the bacterial culture, because that does require aging. So that's the slower method. You want to wait a little longer. The reason you don't need to stretch that mozzarella, and you do need to stretch this type, so the citric acid helps with the stretching, and it helps us to get a faster cheese.
Okay, I think we have time for a couple more questions. Anyone who's a cheeseaholic who just happens to they want to go home and make this right away? Anybody? Right here. Oh, we do have a true cheeseaholic. Second question.
All right, I love it. Keep them coming.
Are we gonna taste it?
Yeah, everyone gets to have a sample. You got it. Yeah, I'm just gonna I'll keep the timing in mind, but I'm just gonna keep going with the cheese that I have, keep making it, and then everyone can come up and sample. I'll cut it up. I'll salt some of this so it's a little bit fresher.
Was it a half rennet or a whole tablet?
It was a quarter tablet.
A quarter.
A quarter
Thank you.
tablet with a quarter cup of non-chlorinated water.
Okay, thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thanks for the questions.
They're
Okay.
paying attention, Chef.
I know, I love it. I love it. You guys are keen.
I'm just wondering, could you eat that cheese now without the stretching, or is it stretching for the purpose of shaping?
It's the purpose of shaping it, and also, yeah, essentially it's going to have more or less the same flavor, but the stretching is for the shaping. Yeah, essentially you're doing that. Yeah, exactly. Like it will taste the same, but it'll have a more rubbery texture. It's about a texture thing, you know. And also, you know, you could, if you want to go to the store and get some like pre-made cheese curd if you wanted, but at this point you know what's in your cheese and you know what what ingredients you're adding. So and it's also easier to make when you do it yourself. Yeah, but essentially the mozzarella, it's just a traditional stretch that they do to make for the mozzarella. Yeah, you can't really get mozzarella without the stretching. Yeah.
Now, Chef, as much as I know, we could probably all sit here and watch you make cheese all day. I'll speak for everyone.
So
Hands
much
up, yes.
fun.
Yeah, I am just enthralled by all this. Anyways, but we are coming down to that time
Yep,
where
no
unfortunately
problem.
we're going to have to ask for either our last couple of questions or we'll wrap things up
For
here.
sure.
And if people do have more questions,
Yep.
where can we find you?
My booth, as you can find it on the far right-hand corner over here. It's number 104. I'm just next to the Evo, the cars. And yeah, you can find me there and ask as many questions as you want. And I've got all of my kits there for sale.
Okay, so how long until the cheese is ready for sampling?
It's ready now. So if I can sample these ones. I forgot to add salt. I'll add a little bit of salt on top. But yeah, these ones are ready for sampling now. So I can.
The cheese is ready. Can we get a
Okay.
few claps going for that? There we go.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to cut it up, and will you go around with
I can
it?
pass
or-
that around.
Okay,
I was saying
that's
before, I'm
awesome.
putting my serving skills to good
Okay,
use
I love
today.
it.
Unless another audience member wants to do that for me again. Eric, where are you?
So how many? I'm just trying to think of how many.
How many of you want cheese?
Everyone.
figured
okay.
there's
All right. I'm gonna do little bite-size pieces.
Just enough to get a fix,
That's
and then you'll be
right.
hooked and you'll want to make it when you get home.
Yeah, that's right. It's so soft. It's hard to cut. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Take it away.
So it's only the mozzarella that gets stretched, not the cheddar kit
No.
thing, right?
Yeah, the cheddar, you don't want to do that. The cheddar wants to stay in a nice strong cheese mold to maintain its shape so you get a full strong wheel of cheese. And then you can cut it up after once it's been made. Okay, we're getting close.
I can feel the anticipation
I
from
know,
this
I know,
audience.
that's right. I'm doing this on purpose actually.
The slow cut.
It's the slow, yeah, that's right, the slow way of doing it. And then I'm gonna sprinkle, everyone's okay with salt? I'm gonna put a little, it's already been submerged in the salt, but I'm gonna,
And Chef, I have to know, what started your passion for cheese? Why did you decide to turn professional?
well, I had a catering business for a long time, and I started, a good friend of mine actually, who owns the business with me, did an internship in cheese making in New Jersey, and she came back all jazzed about cheese, and she kept talking about it. I was like, I have to learn about it. So she taught me how to do cheese making the first time I learned with her. And then I was like, I got to get more into this. So I started learning, and I started going to classes, and I took some courses, and yeah, and I just started teaching it myself, and yeah, it was awesome. It was my friend, and just the passion for learning new things and for making new types of food. Because I mean, who knows how to make cheese? So many people are, it's pretty rare. So okay, I'm going to sprinkle some yummy salt on top. Not too much, just a little bit of extra flavor. Okay, and it is ready for eating. I don't have toothpicks, but I guess people can just grab them or.
Are you guys okay using your hands?
Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I'll spread it out a little.
For the love of cheese, right?
For the love of cheese.